Welcome to 3D Movie Cinema, the only show that is 3 dimensions away from Superman being called Superman Legacy. I'm your host 3D Jake, and today we're looking at Superman, released in 2025. Superman is written and directed by James Gunn and stars David Corenswet, Rachel Brosnahan, Nicholas Hoult, Edie Athegi, Anthony Carrigan, Nathan Fillion, Isabella Merced, and Sarah Semple. The movie is essentially a reboot of the Superman origin, the Superman character in his origin, where basically instead of doing like an origin story this time, this movie throws you right into this, where it's like kind of like the Spider-Man Homecoming treatment, where he's been Spider-Man for a while and everything, and so you get to just like it throws you in there. You don't have to see his origins all over again. Kind of also how the Batman did it as well, and this movie does it as well, where it's like you don't see him being put on a pod and shipped off to Krypton from Krypton, where it blows up and all that shit again. Instead, it actually just tells you like, yeah, this you know the story, and it just throws you in there. He's been like Superman for like a year or two, and I really enjoyed this movie. Like, this movie is a fun time at the movies. I was worried so bad because I'm a huge Superman fan. I literally was not, like, when I was a kid growing up, I was not a big fan of Superman when I was a little boy. But when I was around, like, actually, yeah, I was a little boy. When I was like a real young kid, I was not a big fan. Up until like when I was in around 6th or 5th grade, I started watching Smallville, and then that's what really led me, which I did a podcast. We just wrapped up our 10th season podcast for Talkville, and so I've been a big fan of this character for a long time, and I got the whole entire 4K steelbooks of Superman the Christopher Reeve collection. I am a huge Superman fan now. I love Superman 1 and Superman 2, the Richard Donner cut. I even have a soft spot for Superman Returns, even though I don't love it. And Man of Steel is my favorite Superman movie of all time. And I even like, Lois and Clark, The Adventures of Superman. And I even really appreciate Superman the Animated Series, even though it's not my favorite. I still appreciate it, though. And also appreciate, so I just started finishing up Superman and Lois, even though I like the first 3 seasons. I'm watching the current last season. I'm a big Superman fan. So when it comes time to see this movie, I had high expectations, because I'm like, it's Superman, you have to be big. And so when I was sitting there watching this movie, when it first started out with like the DC thing, there's no Warner Brothers logo, and I was like, okay, yeah, all right, we're in this. And so when I watched the movie, and I'm like, how it starts out. It kind of feels like if you ever seen not Dawn, but War for the Planet of the Apes, how it starts out, where it explains everything like with text. Kind of like that. I know people were saying before, because it kind of was out there, people were saying, oh, it starts out like a Star Wars text. I'm like, no, it doesn't. It starts out more like, just like, like literally, it starts out with the, in the Antarctica, and then some words pop up, and then, talk about metahumans and everything, and like how Superman is known as the big, the strongest metahuman of all. And so I really appreciated that. Like, it doesn't just start out with, oh, on the planet Krypton, there was a baby, because it's just like, we know who Superman is. We know the origin, we know everything, and, and also I really appreciate that it doesn't have to do the origins again. You do see him as a kid, but that's at the end where it's like showing you him looking at a video fit, but it doesn't show him like as a baby. You do see Jor-El and Laurel in this movie, and apparently, like, I know some people were criticizing the fact that because before I saw the movie, there were people saying, oh, they kind of changed the origins, even though I didn't find out why until I saw the movie. I saw that they were talking about the origin and how they messed up. Because originally, like, it was supposed to be like, you have to be a kind, loving person, and the rest of the message is, but you have to also be like, destructive, destroyer of the world and everything, and you're going to be a god among them and kill those who. And I know some people found an issue with that, but I'm like, if you look at Man of Steel, Jor-El basically sent Kal-El there because he wanted Kal-El to turn Earth into Krypton. Like, they were literally going to turn Earth into New Krypton. That was essentially, Jor-El actually was okay with that idea. Like, okay, we're going to go to send Kal-El to Earth. He's going to literally basically be a god among them and everything. And then, of course, once, Jor-El, the hologram, kind of, feels like, okay, we can coexist. We don't need to do this, and everything. And so I understand why in that, Jor-El is not a very good character. He is a flawed person, okay? I'm sure if Jor-El was still around, or if he actually could talk, he would actually be, his hologram would be like, look, I made a mistake. look, I saw that, we could be like, gods among men, when really we need to be, we need to love and cherish them. Because I think Jor-El is not a great person. I mean, I know in some parts, like in some depictions, he's portrayed as like a nice, loving father, and then some he's portrayed as a bastard. Like it just depends on what continuity. In this one, he's kind of portrayed not such a nice guy. Like I remember in Smallville, he's kind of an asshole. And so like I really do like the fact that that James Gunn shows that he's not exactly this loving, nice father. That he actually does have like flaws in him, that where he's like, and I thought that was really cool. I thought David Cornswell was pretty good as Superman. I liked his Clark Kent. He's not Clark Kent much in the movie, but I like him as Superman a lot. The only thing I had an issue with is he gets his ass beat a lot in the movie. That's one of my biggest negatives in the movie is he gets his ass beat so much in the movie, and it's like when he's fighting the giant monster or the Hammer of Baravia. I'm sitting there watching going, he's Superman. Why is he getting his ass beat? And then where the Justice Gang have to show up to help him. And I'm like, he's Superman. Like, Superman should be able to. And I know James Gunn did say in interviews that, oh, well, I didn't really want Superman to be, just can pick up a planet and move it. He wanted Superman to be more grounded. And or not, more grounded, but, more like, weaker, And I thought that's fine because, in Smallville, they kind of like, he's the man as a teenager, weaker. And that was fine with me. But then just him getting his ass beat and never being able to overcome the monsters and stuff, that kind of irked me a little bit, and that just really irked me. But I did like him at the end, though. He did win me over as Superman because he does embodiment of true justice in the American way. And I also really like the fact that, Nicholas Hoult as Lex Luthor is a really good, like I would say he probably is my second or third favorite Lex Luthor. My favorite's still Rosenbaum. Rosenbaum will always be the best. But I really think he is like, I think him and Clancy Brown are really tied up there, neck and neck, because I thought his Lex was really well done. I do laugh. There's even some funny moments with him that made me laugh in the movie, like whenever he's talking about, he's in the Pentagon telling them about the metahumans, about how he's going to use like Ultraman and he's going to have the engineer and what he did. And like when he's telling Colonel, like Rick Flags Jr., Sr. about like this and everything, and the Ultraman's just sitting in the corner, looking like Black Noir from The Boys. And he says, turn the lights on, and then all of a sudden, Ultraman turned the lights on. You just sit there, and Ultraman does have another funny scene where he's just sitting there staring at glass, and Miss Tessmacher is just sitting there texting Jimmy and everything, and then which I thought that was kind of a negative as well, but like, it made me laugh, though. He told Lex, and Lex just opens the door, and it's like, come here, which I'm like, why wouldn't you just go grab her yourself? Also, how did you don't talk? So how would you do? Just write a note and say, Lex, she's on phone, But I did appreciate, that, Lex in this movie, like there's a scene that made me laugh where he's at the Pentagon telling him about this, and they're like, and the one guy's like, what's that stuff, that kryptonite stuff that Superman's, is weak out of? And then all of a sudden Lex just shakes his head and goes, kryptonite? I was like, that made me laugh. And and also there's a funny scene that's kind of reminiscent to the Avengers where Loki gets slammed by Hulk, where Lex Luthor gets slammed around by this Krypto the Super Dog. He's like, that made me laugh and everything. And there is some scenes. There is like a couple of great scenes with Lex. Like one is where he's interrogating Superman. He pulls out this guy who helped up Superman, and he was playing Russian roulette with him until the second. And then by the time he gets the second chance, it was actually a bullet, and he shoots him in the head. And he goes, "Oh, well, we'll find someone else to do it then." As I was not expecting. He's like, I thought that was a really well done scene, and I like the scene where at the end it shows that Superman's actually not a traitor, and Lex Luthor is the one. And you just see, because the one thing in Lex in the comics, and I think James Gunn really understood this, is Lex wants to be loved. And to see that the love is taken away from him, and he just like, he has nothing now. He has absolutely nothing. I really enjoy that and like that. I also like that all these people are just willingly working for Lex. Like they absolutely, like Otis and all them are just like, well, we hate Superman too, and F him, like they're like really, they're not just blackmailing and stuff. Like they're actually, well, we hate fucking Superman, fuck him. I thought that was really, I like that, everything. And I do not like, I didn't like Nathan Fillion as the Green Lantern as much as Guy Gardner. I thought he was kind of douchey, but I understand that's the character in the comics and everything. But I just thought he was just too much of a douchebag in the movie, too just goofy. I did like Mr. Terrific. I thought he was well done. I really liked how he is a character who's really smart, and he's trying to help Lois and everything in the third act. And I thought Metamorpho was really great. My uncle really loved Metamorpho. He thought he was one of the greatest characters in the movie. And then the whole sequence of trying to rescue Baby Joe and everything in the pocket dimension was great. the engineer, I thought she was great and everything. Even though I felt like you could really take them, Ultraman and Engineer, they don't really do nothing. They're just henchmen to Lex. Until like, they do like basically in the third act have a huge fight scene with Superman where they're trying to beat him up with nanites, make him choke on nanites and everything in the football field, and then on top of it in the sky, where basically she gets he pummels to the ground and Ultraman survives, but she gets unfortunately gets hurt. And I thought, she was really great. She reminded me of Mystique in X-Men, the movie, the Bryan Singer X-Men movie. She reminded me of that. And Ultraman just reminds me of Sabretooth from the Bryan Singer X-Men movies. And I understand that, like, one of my negatives at first, but until I was talking with a friend of mine, and they were telling me Ultraman and them are basically like Mystique in the X-Men movies. They're just doing Magneto's task, and then in the end, they fight the X-Men. That's basically them in the movie. They're henchmen, like they're doing his bidding, and then in the end, they fight Superman, kind of like an X-Men in the movie. So I'm like, you're right. So I had to take that off the table because that's true. I thought Ultraman being revealed as Superman, that's in the comics. Although I'm like, where was the cross-eyed thing? Was weird, but I thought it was like, I thought it was I thought that was really well. Lois Lane is okay in the movie. She's not my favorite Lois Lane, but I thought she did an okay job. I thought she did better than Kate Bosworth, but I still think Mark Hill is much better than her. Erica Durance is still my favorite Lois, but she's in the top 4. Also, Jimmy Olsen being like a player was really funny. I thought he was really funny. Him just being the ladies' man and everything, and just like him and he's just like just keeps throwing all the hot ladies off of him. Where especially Miss Tessmacher's just sitting there texting him like how the game plan was. Oh, she's texting me, all the like a picture selfies of her, and really that's the plan. She's been texting all along, and I'm just like, just really like, Jimmy like just trying to shrug off of her, like, how long do we got to be together? Like that was funny. Like where he's like, how long do we have to spend the day together? How long? I thought that was really great. Perry White's not really in the movie much. He is only in a couple scenes. Hot Girl's not really much to do in the movie. She just tags along with the Justice Gang. She has a couple of scenes, but nothing really important until third act when they're basically stopping the war in the Middle East, or the Japaro and Bolivia. That's really the most what Green Lantern and all of them have to do. And, I thought that was really well done. How it does feel, though, like sometimes like it feels like they're ripping off Superman Returns and Superman for the Quest for Peace, because you have like Superman trying to intervene in a conflict, and then, by that action, this happens, just like with the Superman's intervening in their conflict, and then this happens. And so Lex Luthor's, causing all this conflict, just like in Superman 4. And then in Superman Returns, the whole third act of the movie where Krypton's going to come, like, the piece of Krypton is coming to Earth. It's like a pocket dimension that is emerging, going through Metropolis, just like in Superman Returns, where like at the end, Superman has to stop something. Instead of picking up a giant planet, he's having a fight in a pocket dimension and everything. And I thought that was really cool. I did wish that Nicholas Hoult would have put the power suit on and fought him, his legs. I thought that would have been cool, but, it's fine. I still really enjoyed this movie. I do wish it would have ended, like, with Superman flying away. And also Supergirl kind of annoyed me because she's playing a drunk party girl. I kind of wish she was bored, but I understand the movie that's probably going to start off as, like, she is a drunk nobody, and then she becomes, like, Supergirl. So I'll wait till reserve judgment for that movie. If I had to give this movie a grade, I am going to give it an A-. Thank you so much.
Sharpton for president, y'all. I'm outie.
Jesse Jackson for VP.